Welcome back to Taking Initiative. I'm Laura Lucarelli.
And I am Patricia Ann Blackman.
Together, we focus on how direct democracy, or how the people's voices, play out in Ohio. How are you doing today, Pat?
I am having a great day and grateful for another day of learning.
Me too. And I'm looking forward to getting to know Elliot Forhan. He is a Democratic candidate for Ohio's Attorney General. Welcome, Elliot. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Laura, and great to meet both you and Patricia. I look forward to the conversation.
Excellent. Well, just a reminder for you and for our audience, Ohio Ballot Protection will not be endorsing any candidates. Instead, we are asking the same questions of all the candidates that have accepted our invitation to give you an opportunity to get to know them and make a decision for yourself. Now, there are many aspects of the Attorney General's office, but today's questions center entirely on the initiative process and the Attorney General's role in that aspect of the job. It is important, as I already said, that we are not endorsing anyone, but again, we want to understand kind of your viewpoints and give us some more information as we head to the ballot box. So if you're ready, let's get started. Pat has our first question.
Yes, the primaries are coming quickly. On May 5th, you will be facing off against another Democrat, John Kulowitz. Now, Elliot, talk to us about your background and qualifications to be Ohio's Attorney General.
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks again to the two of you for inviting me on to your podcast, to give me an opportunity to introduce myself to you and to your listeners. So I am a former member of the Ohio House of Representatives. I served as a state representative. But more important than that, I beat in court once already Dave Yost's lawyers, and I'm suing him again right now, together with other corrupt Ohio politicians who abuse their offices and the public trust. So I will beat Dave Yost again. Now, my campaign, it's actually quite simple. Just three things: tax the rich, stand up to bullies, and prosecute Donald Trump to the fullest extent of the law. And I appreciate the focus of your podcast. Ballot protection, right? So when I was a member of the Ohio House, a state representative, I served as a member of the state ballot board, right? Which has which I suspect you're very, very familiar with. It plays an important role in connection with the statewide ballot initiatives. In fact, when I was a member of the state ballot board, this was in the year 2023. There were three statewide ballot initiatives in that year. Right, two of them in November and one of them in a special August election. Okay, this was in November. It was the reproductive freedom constitutional amendment ballot initiative and also the cannabis legalization statutory initiative. And then in August we did the it was at the initiative of the Republican-controlled state legislature. The Republicans in the state legislature were asking Ohio voters to approve a constitutional amendment that would have made it more difficult.
60%. You're talking
exactly,
about that
right.
one,
So
yes.
to raise from 50% to 60% the minimum required vote for any future, I think, and they were pretty explicit that the reason they were doing it was specifically to target the reproductive freedom initiative that everybody expected to be on the ballot in November of that year, 2023. They wanted to make it harder to pass any future constitutional amendment. My I'm a Democrat, right? And my side of things, we were in favor of the November initiatives, both the reproductive freedom and cannabis legalization, and we were in opposition to the special August, making it harder in the future to do those initiatives. And in fact, we prevailed with respect to each of those initiatives. So that was, I mean, during my time serving as a state representative, I'm extremely proud of the results that we got with respect to those 2023 ballot initiatives. I think it was a really, maybe some of the most important work that I did as a state representative.
Well, let's dive right into the process if we can. So, the Attorney General's role has been described as the gatekeeper and legal compliance officer when it involves Ohio ballot initiatives. What are your thoughts about that description, and how would you approach this responsibility?
Yeah, so I mean, the way that I see the office of the Ohio Attorney General in that role, it's the top prosecutor position in the state. It's the top law enforcement officer, right? It's the representative in court for the state of Ohio and for the people of Ohio, right? And the office of Ohio Attorney General, it's a very large office. I think between 700 and 800 lawyers working in that office, making it essentially the largest law firm in the state, right? And the jurisdiction of the office is very wide. It has a large range, covering things like consumer protection, also criminal prosecutions, but also the Ohio Attorney General does play a role in the statewide ballot initiative process. I suspect you are very well aware, right? So the statewide ballot initiative process, it includes the Ohio Ballot Board, which, as I mentioned, I served as a member in 2023. But the Ohio Attorney General does play a role, and under this current Ohio Attorney, Dave Yost's tenure in office as Ohio Attorney General. I mean, I do believe that he has played politics with respect to the ballot initiative process. Making it the way that I see the Ohio Attorney General's role there. In connection with the ballot initiative process, you can. I mean, what you should be doing is you should be following the law first and foremost. Enforcing the law as written. That's the most important job. Okay, right? But in doing that, you can the Attorney General can slow down or speed up the process of these ballot initiatives, and that's something that Dave Yost has gotten in trouble for. In fact, I mean, I think there was it one of the qualified immunity initiatives or something like that, where a federal court, they went, he had rejected something like 10 times or something. I mean, an outrageous number of times.
Too many times.
Right?
It was 8 times.
Okay. All right. Well, sorry, Dave. I'm exaggerating, but 8's pretty close to 10, so I wasn't that far off. But a federal court basically said, you can't keep rejecting these submissions, and forced him to follow the law, right? So, I mean, look, as Ohio Attorney General, the most important thing that I would do is exactly that, to follow the law as written, and not, I mean, look, Dave Yost has politicized that office. He has abused that office, letting his rich friends get away with murder, frankly, and this is just one example of the rejecting 8 times that submission.
I was wondering if you have looked at what other states have done. There are about 24 states who have ballot initiatives. Have you looked at what they do and what they do right, and see how it applies to the Attorney General office here? And have you taken that initiative?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I will say, just as a general matter, one of the most important things, as far as I'm concerned, that's happening right now in our country, across the United States, is state attorneys general are taking action, right? And in particular, as far as from my perspective, they're getting results in court, to stop the illegal actions by Donald Trump and this out of control federal government. Okay, and when I'm Ohio Attorney General, I plan to not only join that fight, but be leading that fight. Okay, now your question is a little bit different. Talking about the ballot initiative process. Now, my understanding is that the ballot initiative process in our state is governed by by our state constitutional provisions, right? And the role as the Ohio Constitution designates for the Ohio Attorney General in connection with that process is really, what I was kind of describing before about, approving the language, potentially forcing initiative proponents to break up into more than one initiative, one of their submissions, things along those lines. I mean, there is also, I should point out, for example, in 2024, okay, right? So that was a really awful situation, from my perspective. Again, I'm a Democrat. There was a ballot initiative on this in November of 2024 on the statewide. This was issue 1, to end gerrymandering in our state by establishing an independent commission to remove from the control of elected officials and other politicians the process of redrawing our legislative district maps, right? Which I think most everybody that I talk to, regardless of partisan affiliation, believe is what we should do in Ohio, right? But the language that Secretary of State Frank LaRose wrote that appeared on the ballot, right, was it was a lie, right?
The Attorney General did approve the language.
Right. So this is where I was going with all of it, right? Is that, well, it wasn't that the Attorney General. So the Attorney General, my understanding again was that the Attorney General approved the language of because there's two
language submissions,
like passages, two language ballot languages you have to take into consideration. One is the actual language of the initiative, right, which can be like pages and pages long, right? And then you have the other, the short. Okay, it's supposed to be like maybe just a few paragraphs or something like that, or whatever.
Goes on the actual ballot.
That's what,
yes.
The so-called summary language. Okay, and that is what the Secretary of State writes. The Secretary of State writes, and the Ohio Ballot Board, votes on the summary language. Okay. And so, as far as I'm aware, the Ohio Attorney General does. I don't think that the Ohio Attorney General plays a role in approving the summary language. Although, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I do know this. In 2024, when Secretary of State Frank LaRose and the Republican-controlled Ohio Ballot Board, when he wrote and they approved the deceptive, the lies, right, of that summary language, okay, then there was a legal challenge, litigation, right? There was a court case. I know the Ohio Supreme Court, made the final decision, and Dave Yost, he was arguing in that court case, before the Ohio Supreme Court. Dave Yost was arguing that the court should not order the Ohio the Secretary of State and the Ohio Ballot Board to rewrite the language, right? Because that was what the challengers wanted the court to order the Secretary of State and the Ballot Board to rewrite the language. And so,
I think what we're just trying to get at is that the Attorney General has the initial role, and I think Laura used it correctly when she said the gatekeeper, because actually the Attorney General has to decide whether the petition has truth, fair and truthful language. Once the Attorney General has approved it, then you have to go through the process of getting signature. So we get all of that. We just wanted to know if you looked at any of the other states in the country that might be dealing with this issue.
Yeah, no,
That's okay if you have.
Here's what I would say. Again, I am very well aware, right? And we have a very hotly contested Democratic nomination contest for the Ohio Secretary of State position. Two different candidates. I assume you're familiar, Dr. Hambly and Representative Allison Russo.
Interviewed both of them. Yep.
And yeah, as I think both of them essentially would say, and I agree with both of them. We need an independent commission, and other states across the country are doing that right now. I think with really positive and compelling results, right? There's no reason that we can't do that here in Ohio. The only reason that we don't have it right now is because Frank LaRose lied. The Ohio Ballot Board let him get away with it, and the Ohio Supreme Court, as argued by Dave Yost, the Ohio Attorney General, let them get away with it, right?
I'm gonna skip ahead to a question, Pat, because it falls along this line. So, we talked about how the Attorney General sees the actual petition. If it were to pass, that's what would go into the Constitution, right? And then several steps later, after signatures have been gathered, the ballot board goes ahead and writes what gets put on the ballot. We'd love your opinion on that disconnect of the language.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think it's a similar story as far as I'm concerned. It's a similar story to why do we need the independent commission? Why do we need it? We need to take power out of the hands of politicians, okay? Put it into the hands of essentially just people who are not in that universe, right? Why? Because they're with respect to politicians. It's the in some cases it's their own jobs, but it can be the jobs of people on whom they depend in terms of the political party to whom or to which they belong, right, and for whom they depend for endorsements and other political support, things like that. I mean, there's this whole as I've been working in politics in Ohio now for the past several years. Yeah, I mean, there's this whole universe, right? That where everybody. I mean, and the world is much smaller than you might expect, right? So everybody knows everybody else, right? And everybody is trying to get have favors and this, that, and the other thing. And so when you let the commission draw or the politicians draw the maps, right? They are going to try to, benefit their friends, right, and promote their own interests, right, and that's why we need the independent commission. It's the same story, I believe. It's the same story for this language, right, with the ballot initiative, the ballot board. I mean. And the Ohio Secretary of State. I mean, I think, frankly, again, no pun intended, candidly, we should probably take that role out of the hands of the, maybe out of the secretary. At least, perhaps. How about this? At least when the subject matter of the ballot initiative has sort of a political a valence like that. Like the anti-gerrymandering, from 2 years ago, right? I mean, look, and just so we understand each other. In 2020, so and I just want to state for the record, I was actually no longer a member of the Ohio Ballot Board when in November 2024. Actually, I wasn't on the ballot board for the entirety of calendar year 2024 when we lost the issue 1 in 2024, right? So I had been off of the ballot board for a year at that point, anyway.
Well,
if I'd been on the ballot board, who knows how that would have gone? So, we can't replay history, right? Anyway, but in 2023, I just want to point this out. When I was a member of the ballot board, and we won the August special, in each of the two, cannabis and abortion in November 2023. Okay, Frank LaRose tried to write deceptive language with respect to each of those.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we understand that because you're running for Attorney General. You're not running for Secretary of State. So there are some standards, and I'm just curious if you could tell us if there's anything that we haven't heard already as the Attorney General that you would do to protect direct democracy.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I believe that, in order, or, if you are eligible to vote in our state, I believe that voting, exercising the fundamental right should be easy, okay? And the efforts to intimidate at the polls, for example, voters. I mean, your question is about direct democracy, but direct democracy is part of democracy in general, right?
I think you make a great point. We've really explored this issue quite well. So I think Laura has a final question.
I was going to ask as we wrap today, why do you want the job?
Well, because I believe I'm the best, person to be the next Ohio Attorney General. Again, I served as a member of the Ohio House of Representatives, a state representative, but more important than that, I beat Dave Yost in court once already, suing him again together with other, corrupt Ohio politicians. So I'm going to beat Dave Yost again. And I've already mentioned, I'm running to apply the law equally to everybody, including the rich, including the powerful, including the president of the United States. And on day one, I'll just, this final point. On day one, the first lawsuit that I would file as Ohio Attorney General would be to enforce the guarantee under the Ohio Constitution for full and equal funding for our public schools. I think, direct democracy and all democracy, it depends on having a population that has access to public education.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I appreciate it.